that I read was From Chocolate to Morphine.
Ah, that's a long time ago. It's still in print, and I'm going to do a revised edition soon.
It was a fascinating book. It was just the psychoactive properties of foods, basically, and over the years I followed your work, and over the years I've been a health food junkie. And back in 1978, my wife and I started the New England Salem Children's Village, which continues to this day, which was a vegetarian diet-based, natural foods-based program for kids who were diagnosed with severe. Well, they were the kind of the edge of the line kids, the end of the line kids, severely emotionally disturbed and abused kids, and it's worked wonderfully with them.
Delighted to hear that.
Yeah, there's a lot, and we relied heavily on your work for that.
Great.
And so I'm pleased to have you with us. His website, by the way, Dr. Andrew Weil, those of you not familiar with him, is drweil.com. And one of the real pioneers and the face for many, many years of progressive medicine. Integrative medicine is called nowadays. It used to be called alternative medicine. Columnist for Prevention and Time magazines, the author of 10 best-selling books. drweil.com is website. Dr. Weil, you wrote an article recently in which you asserted that you were conservative on medicine. And I thought it was brilliant on a couple of different levels. I have been for a long time on this radio program, which is unabashedly not partisan, not party partisan, but liberal, progressive. I have been calling for Republicans to take back their party. My father was a conservative and died a conservative and a Republican, and a Republican and a somewhere between an Eisenhower and a Goldwater conservative. And he was horrified by much of what is being called conservative these days.
Yep.
And the point that you make in your book or in your article, I thought was a point that really should be made on every single television program that has one of these phony conservatives on. And I'd like you to go through the logic train in that with us.
Sure. The kind of medicine that I teach, called integrative medicine, is now really becoming mainstream, and it's not alternative medicine. At the Arizona Center for Integrative Medicine, I and my colleagues are training physicians, medical residents, nurse practitioners, and others to know when and when not to use this high-tech, expensive, conventional medicine that we're now using for everything, and which is the main reason our healthcare costs are so high.
Right.
There are whole areas of very relevant to health and treatment, like nutrition, mind-body interactions, lifestyle choices that are simply not taught. And I think this is basically conservative because we're trying to return medicine to its roots. Throughout history, good physicians have understood that healing is rooted in nature, that most disease is self-limited, that the body has an array of its own mechanisms to promote healing. We're medically conservative also in advocating that the least treatment is the best, the least expensive, least invasive treatment as demanded by the circumstances of illness. And I think we're fiscally conservative because we are trying to lower healthcare costs by bringing lower-cost treatments into the mainstream.
And none of that, by the way, Dr. Weil's most recent book, Why Our Health Matters, let me get that in there because I find your writings to be so valuable. None of that, Dr. Andrew Weil, is at the core of our current healthcare system. We have, on the one hand, patients who are being inundated by a marketing machine that says, this is what it looks like inside your veins when it's all, look at all those things clotting up. Oh, my God, you better get some Zoloft or Valcor or whatever, name it. I'm naming the wrong drugs here, but you know what I'm talking about. And Lipitor, get some Lipitor tomorrow. And then on the other side, you've got hospitals and in some cases even groups of doctors, as the New Yorker article you probably are familiar with,
Sure.
pointed out, where there's a group of doctors down in Denton, Texas, who got together and, as investors, invested in an imaging lab and their own X-ray machines and their own, this, that, and the other thing, and started referring their patients to it. And gee, all of a sudden, their patients were getting twice as many procedures as they used to have, and these doctors were making a whole lot more money than they used to. And the cost of medicine in that town went from $7,000 a person up to $14,000, if my memory of that article is correct.
Right.
And so you've got, on the delivery side, we've got a dysfunctional for-profit system that encourages, let's call it anti-conservative, because I don't want to call it liberal. I like the word liberal, but let's call it destructive medicine, or at least stupid medicine. And in the middle, we've got money changers who don't prescribe a single drug, don't take anybody's temperature, don't show up in the middle of the night when a kid is spiking a fever at 105. They do nothing. They do absolutely nothing except take the money from you and me as patients, and you're one of the docs too, and hand it to you as a doc and say, oh, and by the way, we're going to skim 30% off the top for doing that, and we're going to pay Stephen Hemsley, who's the head of the CEO of United Healthcare, we're going to pay him $770 million for the last 5 years, and we're going to pay his predecessor, Bill McGuire, $1.78 billion, because, handling that money is really hard work. This is screwed up.
It certainly is, and if we don't do something about it, it's going to sink us. We pay more for health care than any people in the world, and we have less to show for it. And the problem is, I don't think we can look to politicians to change anything, because they are too beholden to these big vested interests that don't want change. I think it's up to people to get informed about these issues and to demand the kinds of changes that we need. For example, I would immediately ban direct-to-consumer advertising of pharmaceutical drugs.
Amen.
The only
used to be banned.
That is New Zealand.
Yeah, it used to be banned. I mean, they dropped that ban when? I didn't notice. I just all of a sudden noticed these ads.
Yeah, it's fairly recent.
15 years ago?
Yeah, it's been a disaster for medical practice, a huge boon for the drug companies. We should stop it right away.
Yeah. I can't imagine any doctor, sitting in their office and having a patient come in and say, I think I need Rebecca for the door, and the doctor's going, oh no, here comes another one, right?
It's terrible. And the pharmaceutical lobby, for all these years, imagine this, has blocked any legislation that would allow the federal government to buy prescription drugs from Medicare at a discount.
Right, to negotiate prices like they do. Well, actually, the government does negotiate prices on prescription drugs, and in many cases they get discounts as much as 70, 80, 90% because they're buying millions at a time. But the only division of the U.S. government that's allowed to do that is the Department of Defense for the Veterans Administration and for active duty military and TRICARE.
Yep. So we've got a big problem, and I don't... the debate at the moment is just missing the point. It's all about how to give more people access to this system and how
the system itself
is broken. The system is broken.
Yeah. So it seems to me that a pretty straightforward way to solve this problem, and I was the keynote speaker at Physicians for National Health Plan back about 8 years ago, and because of a book that I wrote on a topic related to this. And they've been right out at the front of this, and several good friends of mine are members of that organization, and docs, and they've been talking about this for decades. It seems like a very straightforward way to do this is to let or require everybody in the United States to buy into Medicare and make it completely transparent and allow it to completely negotiate with everybody, period, and now it's accountable to we the people. If we don't like the way it's running, we can give our elected officials hell. If I try to go give Stephen Hemsley at United Healthcare hell, he will have me arrested for trespassing. But I can stand out in front of, Congressman, Senator Jeff Merkley's office or Ron Wyden's office all day long with a sign saying, hey, cretin, change the healthcare. And that's my right. I mean, it's protected by the First Amendment.
Yep.
And so it seems to me that a national single-payer health care system, Medicare for all, is the best way. You have an alternative?
I agree. I think the political reality is that we're not going to get that right away, but maybe we can inch our way toward that.
Yeah.
Every other advanced nation provides health care for all of its citizens. At some point, we're going to have to get in line.
And in every other advanced country, which includes countries as small as Costa Rica with an average income of $9,700 a year, in every other advanced country in the world, it is a crime. You go to jail. It is a crime for a health insurance company to provide primary insurance for profit.
The money-driven system that we have now has been awful. I would love to see the profit motive taken out of medicine. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't increase efficiencies. In fact, it does the exact opposite, and people are dying as a consequence of it. Dr. Andrew Weil, his website, Dr. Weil, drweil.com. His most recent book of many, Why Our Health Matters, and
Good to talk to you.
Say that again?
Good to talk to you.
Yeah, it's excellent having you on. Thanks so much for dropping by.
Okay.
Keep up the great work, sir. We'll be back with a little more of what's in the news today. We've got a couple of very interesting stories here. Plus, I want to pick up your thoughts on this. And what can we do? Has the Obama administration sold us out? Stick around.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.